You spent more than a decade in school, right? But here's a crazy thought. Nobody probably ever taught you how to actually study. Seriously, think about it. You learned all about history and science and math, but did anyone ever pull you aside and teach you the science of learning itself? Well, today we're diving into what might be the most important subject you were never taught, how to use your own brain.
It's a really strange question when you stop and think about it, isn't it? Because it feels like a massive oversight. We're expected to spend our entire childhoods learning things, but the actual process, the how-to part, is almost completely ignored. It's kind of like being handed a really complex, powerful piece of software and just no instruction manual. Good luck.
Okay, so let's put a number on this. 15,000. That's roughly how many hours you spend sitting in a classroom by the time you finish school. 15,000 hours. All of that time is spent putting information in, with almost zero time spent on how to effectively process, remember, and actually use that information. That is the huge scale of the missed opportunity we're talking about here. Now this is a really crucial point. The system isn't broken. It's actually doing exactly what it was designed to do, which is to sort and rank students based on their ability to memorize and then spit back information. I mean, think about it. From those spelling tests in elementary school all the way to final exams in university, the basic game is the same. Here's some information, now please reproduce it. The content changes, but that fundamental game, it has very little to do with genuine understanding or learning how to think for yourself. So if we think of school as providing the apps, chemistry, literature, geography, what's the one thing that's missing? Well, it's the operating system. It's that underlying program that runs everything else and allows you to learn efficiently in the first place. And believe it or not, there's actually a name for this missing piece of software. Cognitive scientists call it metacognition. Now, I know, it sounds super complicated, but it's really not. It's just about thinking about your own thinking. It's the ability to step back and ask yourself, wait, do I actually understand this, or do I just recognize the words on the page? Is highlighting this chapter actually helping me learn, or does it just feel like I'm doing something productive? See, students with strong metacognitive skills aren't necessarily smarter, they just know how to operate their own brains a heck of a lot better.
And check this out, because this perfectly illustrates the problem. Researchers asked a bunch of students to identify the most effective study strategies. And as you can see on the left, they knew the right answers. They picked things like active recall and spaced repetition. But then, when those same researchers watched what those students actually did when it was time to study, well, that's the list you see on the right. They went right back to rereading notes, highlighting, and cramming. This is what's known as the knowing-doing gap.
This really gets to the absolute heart of the matter. School is fantastic at giving you the what, all the content, the facts, the figures, but it consistently, almost completely, fails to teach the how, the actual process of learning. Imagine if a fitness coach told you that just looking at a picture of a dumbbell would make your muscles grow. That's what rereading your notes is like. It's totally passive. But trying to recall that information from memory without looking, that's the mental equivalent of actually lifting the weight. It's the struggle, the active effort, that builds the mental muscle. That's the conversation that's missing from our classrooms.
So this isn't just an individual problem, like some students having bad study habits. No, this gap has massive consequences for society as a whole. It creates a huge divide that has pretty much nothing to do with intelligence and everything to do with access to the right strategies.
I love this quote because it just perfectly captures how absurd the situation is. For 12 years, students are passively fed information. They get really, really good at receiving fish. But then, on graduation day, bam, they're suddenly expected to be expert fishermen, even though they've never even been shown how to hold the rod properly. It's no wonder so many of us feel totally lost when we get to college or start our first job.
And this is exactly where it becomes a real issue of fairness. Researchers call this metacognitive equity. See, students who have highly educated parents often just absorb these learning strategies at home, almost by osmosis. A parent shows them how to break down a problem, or a tutor helps them with self-testing. But what about the students who don't have that support at home? They get left behind, because school, the one place that's supposed to level the playing field for everyone, doesn't teach these skills.
And in a place like India, this problem lands with extra force. You have this enormous pressure around board exams, and the whole system is overwhelmingly built on rote memorization. So what happens? It creates students who are absolutely brilliant at reproducing information on a test, but it leaves them underprepared for the next step, whether that's a competitive exam that requires reasoning or a job interview that demands original thinking. The what was taught, but the how to use it was not.
Okay, so we've diagnosed the problem pretty thoroughly. But here's the good news.
The science on how to fix this has been crystal clear for decades. It's just a matter of getting this knowledge out of the psychology labs and into the hands of actual students. So let's take a look at what the research says actually works.
It really all comes down to these three incredibly powerful techniques. First, you've got retrieval practice. That just means don't reread your notes, actively try to pull the information out of your brain. Second is spacing. Don't cram all night, study in shorter bursts over several days. And third, my favorite, is the 2-minute question. Just ask yourself, could I explain this whole concept to a 10-year-old from scratch? If the answer is no, you don't really understand it yet.
And I want to be clear, this isn't just some small 1% improvement. We're talking about a dramatic difference. Studies have shown that making that one simple shift from passively rereading to actively retrieving can literally double what you remember a month later. That's a total game changer.
But here's the most powerful part about retrieval practice and why it works so well. It's not just about strengthening your memory. It's actually a diagnostic tool. See, when you just reread a page, everything looks familiar and your brain tricks you into thinking you know it. But the moment you try to recall it from memory, you immediately discover all the parts you don't actually know. It makes the invisible gaps in your knowledge totally visible.
This is the fundamental question you have to start asking yourself all the time. Recognition is easy. It's what most multiple-choice tests measure. You see the right answer, and your brain goes, oh yeah, I've seen that before. But true understanding is being able to generate the answer from scratch with a blank piece of paper. They feel similar, but they are not the same thing, and our education system constantly confuses the two.
So the crucial takeaway here is that this isn't just about getting better grades. The real goal is to become an independent, lifelong learner. It's about building an operating system for your brain that works for any subject, any new skill you want to learn, any career change you might face. School gives you content that expires. Metacognition gives you a process that lasts a lifetime.
Look, fixing a systemic problem like this takes a dedicated effort. It needs people in the room deciding that how a student learns is every bit as important as what a student learns. And thankfully, there are organizations out there taking up this exact mission.
One of those organizations is the Dr. Kalam Saksharta Mission. For decades now, they've been working to empower Indian education by focusing on the skills that are actually going to matter for the future. The very skills of thinking and learning how to learn that we've been talking about this whole time.
And they're making all of this really practical and accessible. They're creating a WhatsApp channel to share these powerful learning strategies through classes, webinars, and videos. So here's the final question for you. Now that you know about your brain's operating system, are you ready to finally install the upgrade? To join them and start learning how to learn, all you have to do is click the link in the description. It's totally free, and it might just be the most important lesson you ever get.